Everybody, welcome back to another Warframe video. We are standing here as our operator. We're doing another build video. Today we're going to go over a frame that is out for Prime Resurgence right now, and one that I think that you should not miss out on. There are two Prime Warframes out right now for Prime Resurgence. One of them is Titania. That's the one people say you should go after, more importantly. But I recommend you do not sleep on this Warframe, because this Warframe is also very powerful. Titania is considered better than the one I'm about to go over, but this one is not one you should sleep on either. So, let's get into it. We're going over Gara, or Gara Prime, who is out for Prime Resurgence. This frame is great. Wait, do I have no abilities on it? She is a great defense frame, but also a great survivability frame, in my opinion, because with her Splinter Storm, you can actually hold down the button with her Splinter Storm, or just activate the ability while you're not aiming at anything. You can actually put the Splinter Storm on yourself and gain up to a 90% damage reduction. So you have essentially Messa's ability, which is Shatter Shield. You have essentially Messa's ability, which is Shatter Shield, but instead of it just working for bullets, this works for everything. So you get 90% damage reduction for everything. And then max level Gar, you have 22, a duration of 22. So, yeah. Then you got Spectre. I'm not going to try. This is a good ability for crowd control. There's enemies that are stuck within the ring of these mirrors. They will just shoot the mirrors and not you, and potentially kill themselves at the end of the mirror. Shatterlass and Mass, and these two abilities, people love this for like low-level defense missions. Just shatter, as you can activate her glass wall and use her force ability to shatter it and murder everything, completely everything. The stats of this ability are also boosted by your melee weapon. I didn't realize that as well, but both of the builds we're about to showcase don't really focus on shattering the wall. But that's one thing people like to do. They would be in low-level defense missions, like relic openings. They just want to get the relic openings over with, so they use this setup of these two abilities. Now, one build I recommend is a build with any ability that sucks enemies in. So I went for Coil Horizon. This is from Gara, the Warframe from the Zariman. This is completely optional. I use this ability due to Archon Stretch, because then you can use some like Blind Rage and Energy Siphon, and still Archon Stretch does not. This helps with some of the energy problems that comes with Blind Rage, so your abilities are not too costly. You want to go for duration as much as possible. You want a little bit of range, so that way this can suck enemies in from a bigger range. This is for her glass ability. This is for if you actually want to camp inside of the wall, mind you, because, mind you, enemies that are inside of her wall while you're popping it, or doing it, the more enemies that you glass inside the wall, the more health her wall has. So if you want to sit and camp inside of her wall, you want as many enemies in as possible. That's why I recommend abilities like Coil Horizon. You can also use abilities such as Korra's Ensnare. That's the one I kind of don't recommend, because that one's a bit weird to use. Well, actually, I do recommend that one. But the other two you can use is Larva, Nidus's Larva from the helmet, or you can use Zephyr's Airburst ability, but you can get Airburst with it. But the only reason why I would recommend Airburst is because you have Airburst rounds for her augment, which is each enemy hit by Airburst increases your secondary damage by 40%. So if you plan on using Airburst, I highly recommend on using that augment, which means you can replace this one, which you 100% can, for Airburst, which actually might end up being what I do. But if you use it that way, I do highly recommend mending splinters, because unless you have another form of healing, this is going to be another good way, because like I said, her Splinter Storm can either be on you or an enemy. So you pop this on an enemy, they're taking health. They're just ticking at damage. So and you're healing, and it's based off of strength. In my case, 28.5 points of health. They could be higher with more strength. Molt, I put Molt Reconstruct on because even some like a 90% damage reduction, you can still get majorly butt fucked in the end. So I use this and Mending Splinters to make sure I actually have survivability, like good survivability if I really need it. For Molt Augmented, you do not need this unless you really want to get Mending Splinters' number pretty high. I recommend just using this slot for any primary weapon boosting stuff, or whatever, like you want to use a secondary weapon, use an arcane that buffs your secondary weapons. Just use whatever you feel is plausible for this slot. I have another build as well that I used and I kind of like, and that one is actually replacing your fourth ability and using Shooting Gallery. This is massive, like really trying to get a bunch of crowd control. So you don't need that much strength, so I just use the Umbra mods, and that tips us over to where we want it to. Don't know why these are here. We can swap this one to the Molt. Just this one to the Molt right here. Same thing with the Molt Augment, swap it to whatever damage it is. But this one is with Shooting Gallery and this ability, so you can really get a bunch of crowd control and still have her survivability with her Splinter Storm, in case some enemies decide to say, hey, I'm gonna shoot you in the face. I kept her first ability because it's fun to use, but it's fun to have, because if you guys don't know, I love the sound of shattering glass. That's why I've kept this one for this one. And this build is not for camping behind a wall. This is not for crowd control. So I kept her first ability, even though we're probably not going to use that much for this setup. But this is the one I highly recommend. Like I said, you can. And also, for this other build, you don't have to actually use Shooting Gallery. I used a couple of others. Ones I recommend is basically Roar or Zada's Whisper, or even Grendel's Nourish. It is getting a nerf with Dante's Unbound, Grendel's Nourish. Just the effects it gives you, which is the extra energy and health, extra energy and viral damage, is just being toned down. But I think Grendel's Nourish will still be one of the top abilities for proccing viral. But use any damage buffing ability, like I said, like Grendel's Nourish, Rhino's Roar, or Zada's Whisper, just whatever, or even Mirage's Eclipse, because that's getting us basically. I more see it as a buff for Dante Unbound. So put any of that in replace for the Shooting Gallery. I just wanted more crowd control, but you can swap that around to whatever you feel like necessary. Now, in terms of weapons, just pretty much use what you feel comfortable with. I use the Nuker with it, and it's pretty nice. The Nuker. I was using the Kuva Ogress. I need to level it up, but it's going to be your standard viral and heat stuff. But more importantly, this build is more for crowd control. This one is more for throwing out Coil Horizon or your Airburst or Larva or Ensnare, getting a bunch of enemies using your wall and camping in a wall. And getting the most health out of your wall so it doesn't get insta destroyed. And if you use Airburst, I recommend swapping to the whatever the augment was called again, where you get more secondary damage. Now, I don't have any of the Archon shards, but because I'm waiting for the Dante Unbound stuff so you can actually fuse the normal ones into thingies. The only ones I recommend using are maybe one blue one for more energy, because even with 600 it might be a pain to do with the first setup. Only thing I can tell you is to use a bunch of red shards that allow ability duration and not much for strength. Or honestly, use the orange shards if you plan on using a AoE weapon. Use this for either the regenerate shields, or the gain 1 health per enemy killed with whatchamacallit, blast damage. I mean, you can do the Topaz one if you use the whatever the ability was. I completely forgot the name. The Coil Horizon. I do recommend using some of the the violet ones or the purple ones to use either the ability damage or the primary gain 30%, the primary electricity damage. You need electricity for something which is stun enemies. So yeah. Like I said, Gara is out for Prime Resurgence, and she is a frame. I know that Titania is going to be the most popular to go after. But if you do not have Gara Prime, I recommend you actually go after her. She is not a frame. I recommend you sleep on. She'll be here at probably the time of this posting. She'll be here for another 18 days. I do recommend you get Gara. You're probably going to get her anyway if you just need to get her for the fodder. But I do recommend you go after her because she is a good frame to use. Her weapon is the Astilla Prime. It's a fun shotgun, but not meta, pretty much. The better, I mean, hell, I say that the Corinth is a fuck ton better. Is a fuck ton better than the Astilla, but that's because I like it a lot more. But I really do not recommend you sleep on Gara Prime. Like I said, replace her first ability if you plan on camping in a wall for Steel Path. Use any ability that sucks enemies in. I put Coil Horizon on to abuse this. I'm probably going to put in some of the purple shards, even abuse it more. And then for her second build, I recommended using anything that you find valuable. I said shooting gallery for a bunch more crowd control. If you want a bit more range, I could probably put a bit more if I actually put more formas into her. And then use maxed out mods, but my resources are not exactly top tier, let's say. And something like Rhino's Roar or Zada's Whisper would do you fine if you feel like you need the more damage from your weapon. Rhino's Roar will double dip for the whole... I'm not sure about double dipping, but it'll do the whole thing with the status effect damage. It'll just do the whole thing with it. So yeah, so this is a Warframe I do not recommend you miss out on for the Prime Resurgence right now. Get it either if you need the fodder or use it. And plus, she's really good for fashion. I mean, she's just super pretty. She is a glass knight, and she is sexy like a motherfucker. Like she is such an absolutely beautiful frame. So yeah, just don't miss on this frame because, like I said, for fashion, she is beautiful, and she's legitimately a good frame for Steel Path missions. If you want to, like I said, I love Mesa and I love her Shatter Shield. Her Splinter Storm is essentially that. So yeah, that's all for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like, really appreciate it. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button for more videos like this. Either the gameplay, my opinion, is hopefully helpful, or there's general gameplay that you guys probably don't care about watching. Till next one, peace out. Love you all. Stay healthy. And yeah, love you all. Have a good one.